Hey everyone, we want to welcome you to another installment of the Simone Edwards Show here on this station. It is a lovely, lovely, lovely Saturday today, and I'm happy to have in studio our guest, Sean Elo, who is running for the Community College Board. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other projects he has going on. Find out why this Community College Board thing is so important and why you need to get involved and support in any way that you can. But before we jump off into the deep end, let's get to know Mr. Elo just a little bit. So, Sean, welcome. Say hello to our audience.
Hi, Simone. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's get to know you a little bit. Starters, you are not from San Diego.
No, not originally. So my family, we mostly grew up in Orange County, and I say mostly because we moved a lot.
Right.
And I say Orange County because we moved all over the place.
Gotcha.
So I went to a number of schools and lived in different neighborhoods.
Okay.
We also spent some time in Florida, a year in Oregon, and then I actually spent a year immediately prior to moving here teaching English in Korea.
Oh, wow. How did that happen?
So I wanted to see more of the world. I was studying for the LSAT to go to law school and applying to law school, and teaching English abroad was a good way to kind of get by while doing some exploring and traveling.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, so what was Korea like? Obviously, you were in South Korea.
I was in South Korea. I'm adventurous, but not that adventurous. It was a really good learning experience, right? So I was teaching at a very rural school. Mm-hmm. So the town that I lived in was medium-sized, but then I would take a bus maybe 30 minutes to the school, and it was really just rice paddies and very rural. And so Korea is a country that has had actually incredible growth, like over the last 35, 40 years.
Right.
From like really, really poor to what it is today.
Right.
But it's also it forced me to kind of grapple with why some folks can at times be worried about outsiders. Like I didn't understand at first why there was some pause and hesitation, but then as you learn a little bit more about history and how if a country's been invaded over and over again, and if people have been constantly kind of under attack, why it takes a minute. It also was it's always in the moment not necessarily comfortable to be stared at and it's not like totally foreign to me to have that experience, but some of the older folks there, because I'm a mixed ethnicity, there was always this kind of like, what are you? What's going on there?
Right.
And that's it helps you grow. Like in the moment, it's uncomfortable, but sometimes discomfort is a sign of growth and
right.
a way of helping you.
Like step up to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you learn about yourself in that discomfort? Like what have you taken away from your Korea experience?
Yeah, so I think it was trying to understand why things can be different, and that just be like different isn't. It was another lesson in, because we're always receiving this lesson,
right.
That different isn't necessarily wrong.
Right.
It's different.
Right.
And so, and then getting used to navigating different types of systems and cultures, and dealing with the frustrations when this just makes no sense to me, but it is the way it is, and so
right.
we're just going to deal with it, right?
Right.
All of those, I think, were really valuable lessons, and it's been I got back almost 7 years ago. I spent a year there, but it did have a big impact on me, and I'm sure it shapes the way I see and navigate the world for sure.
Wow. So if you had to do it all over again, would you go?
Mm-hmm,
would you go back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd spent a few months in South America, like prior to that, and that was also a great experience. But South Korea was more of a stretch for me.
Right.
Latin America felt comfortable for me. It felt much more like home.
Right.
And South Korea was much more like, okay, like you're gonna go away.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you were kind of put in this place, this weird juxtaposition, because you were there to offer a service, but it sounds like there was resistance to you being there.
Yeah, well, I think some of it's generational, right? So
Right.
The level of comfort seemed, and I'm going to keep saying seemed because my ability to communicate was really limited, right?
Right.
So the level of comfort with me or just foreigners in general seemed to vary depending on generation. Also,
Got it.
like, and same thing happens in the States, right? The rural versus urban,
Right.
in terms of exposure to different types of people and viewpoints, and all of those dynamics. Those are just people things, right? The more different people that folks are used to seeing, the less of a double take they're going to do when they see, when they see something new.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was a good overall experience for sure.
Awesome. So how long did you teach there?
A year.
A year?
Yeah, taught elementary school.
Okay. What was the
Elementary
reception like from the kids?
Kids were great. But it was K through 5 or 6. Obviously, the little one's adorable, and like at that stage, learning a second language, it's really about just making them comfortable with being around. They don't understand what I'm saying, but I'm basically being silly, and we're singing songs, and they're getting comfortable with
Right.
learning English as an idea. And then 5th grade, at that point, like the boys are challenging, but it was all fun.
Right.
And then it was just like and teaching it helps grow patience, and especially when you're not able to communicate
Right.
really fully. And
Right.
the Korean teachers help with that a bit, but they're still you got to think on your toes and improvise, and it's good.
All right. That sounds like such an incredible experience. Like seriously, if it's something I could do, I would be like, yes, I'm
You
on
could do it
right
actually.
now.
That's actually interestingly enough, they're always looking for teachers.
Right.
It's kind of a if you can go for 6 months or a year, it's a thing that, like I said, I can't afford to just travel, right? And not get paid, and you can earn a decent salary, and they cover your housing, and yeah.
Speaking of housing,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking about your height.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
what was that like for you culturally, as far as like the housing? Was it traditional Western as to what you're accustomed to? Only because I've talked to people
Yeah.
who have lived in other Asian countries, and they talked about their experience.
Yeah. So the apartment that I was in was kind of I guess a little bit different than what I'd be used to here, but not like completely different. I will say that the space was tighter, and I think that just traveling overall, one of the things that it really helped me do was settle on, or like kind of refine my view of what I need, and needing less.
Got it.
I went a good year and a half without having like all of my stuff, and I was fine, and that's good. That was a good lesson for me, and I remind myself of that now. I've been in San Diego 6.5 years, and so stuff is accumulating. And as I think about, okay, I don't. It's fine to get rid of that thing. I don't need that.
Right.
It was fine in Korea. It was fine when I was traveling other times. And I think that was a good overall lesson. And the smaller space forces that even more.
Got it. So, one of the things you brought up that happened in Korea was people some of the older generation, didn't really know how to receive you because they were like, wait, what's your ethnicity?
Right.
So, I know this.
Yeah.
But share with our audience, what is your ethnicity?
Yeah, so my mom is, she is Central American, so both of her parents were born in Central America, Nicaragua and Panama. She was born in the States, spent half her childhood in Mexico. And then my dad is Jewish, but his mom's side from Europe and his dad's side are Sephardic Jews, which are originated in southern Spain or northern Africa. And then his family eventually made their way through Turkey and into Syria before they came to the States. So, a little bit of almost everything, it seems.
Right.
My mom's, despite her parents being born in Central America, they also have, as throughout Latin America, you'll see roots all over especially the European continent.
Right. So, how do you deal with your ethnicity?
Yeah.
Like, how do you navigate through the world? Because a lot of times, I had a conversation with a young lady I met at an event, and she is biracial.
Mm-hmm.
And she said a lot of times, we're so quick to talk about representation. She's like, but I don't always see representation for me in sitcoms. I don't see representation for me often on the big screen.
Yeah.
I don't see representation. So she talked about the struggle of finding that, like, she's proud of who she is and she loves who she is, but the struggle to get there. Did you have that struggle?
So yeah, I think the struggle for me, a lot of it was about feeling and connecting with these different, like, in a very strong way with my family's roots, but not feeling like others will see that.
Got it.
Or know that, and so there's just an insecurity that kind of results from that, right? So I can feel Latino, and I can know how important that is to my to my identity and who I am. But there was still a huge insecurity with stepping into certain spaces where I feared, without anyone even saying anything, that people would make assumptions that I wasn't.
Got it.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me during law school was my participation with the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association and the La Raza Law Students Association. And my first week of school, I remember this so distinctly because he's now one of my best friends, but they were doing recruitment, for student organizations. And I stopped at the table because I'd always, I wanted to join these organizations, but I was kind of scared.
Right.
And I asked all these questions, and he basically was like, just join, and I didn't do it for the first year. I still was hesitant, and over time these were my best friends on campus, and I refer to them as my law school family, and I was able to serve as president of the organization my third year, which was so meaningful to me.
Right.
And it really, really helped me kind of grow some confidence in just stepping into and owning that part of my identity. The same is true with my Jewish roots. I am not really well educated in terms of Jewish traditions, especially on the religious side of things. And again, a lot of insecurity that if I go into those spaces, people are going to judge, what I don't know.
Right.
And a lot of that was just, in me. But I think over time I've got a little more comfortable with it. It's still a work in progress, but it's important to me. And then the representation part, seeing, it's still, I see a lot of pride when I see folks represented in ways that they're not traditionally represented. And I think the other part of that for me is because my family's roots are so all over the place, and whether it's ethnically or religiously, my dad's Jewish, my mom's Catholic. I've got a tia on my mom's side who's converted to Islam, and so I really feel like a family connection to everyone. And so it just regardless of whether or not that's actually my ethnic background, I can't help but see the world kind of as my family, and so representation across the board is really important to me.
That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Okay, we have one more minute to go before we take a break for station identification. So, of course, I'm going to pull out a popcorn question, right? Okay. Yeah. If you could see yourself anywhere in 5 years, where would you like for Sean Elo to be in 5 years?
I've got 30 seconds to answer that.
Yes.
So every decision that I've made since 2008, and maybe we can get kind of later on maybe talk about why 2008, since then has been about trying to identify opportunities to create the most positive impact that I can. Okay. And so it's very difficult for me to define what that exact position or role would be, but I know that I'm always looking for the way to do the most good. Right, and so it would be 5 years from now. I would hope that I'm in a place where I'm able to make more good impact, and hopefully substantially more.
Awesome. I love it. When we get back, we're going to talk about 2008. We're going to talk about him being a lawyer, actually, because we kind of just skipped over that. We're going to talk about the Community College Board, and we've got his work with RISE and what he's doing in the community. All of that's coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
All right, we are back here in studio with Mr. Sean Elo. So we left off at the break with 2008 and the significance of that year.
Yeah.
So why was 2008 your catalyst for change?
Yeah. So I spent the first 9 years of my adulthood, if you want to, for guys, I'll be real honest, like, first half of your 20s, not really a grown-up. But I spent the first 9 years of adulthood in my professional career as a coach, as a high school, mostly a high school coach, and I coached some other ages as well. And I loved it. I was just completely obsessed with my position and loved it. But I kind of had a growing desire to kind of see more of the world, to do a little bit more, but it wasn't crystallized. It was just a thing floating around my head. I was doing a lot of reading at the time, and just kind of expanding my thoughts. And then I'd had a lot of political interest when I was younger, but I grew up in Orange County and felt different in like many different ways, right? So ideology, ethnically, like all just a variety of ways. And so I didn't necessarily feel like there was a place for me. And I just put that to the side. And then the Obama campaign in 2008 was like the perfect thing to grab me.
Right.
And it's like, well, he's even more different than I am, right? Like,
right.
and so it and the way he talked about things, it just totally pulled me back toward wanting to create change that way. And really inspired me. And so in the fall of 2008, after the early fall or late summer, after the Democratic convention, when then Senator Obama accepted the nomination at the convention, I told the athletic director that was going to be my last season. And that's tough, as a head coach of a sports team, you really develop bonds and relationships with student athletes. You see young folks come in from 8th grade, and then you send them off to college, and those are like and the sports that I coach, swimming and water polo, those are 2 times a day practices, 6 days a week. Most of the athletes do both sports, so you're spending about 9 months of the year, you're spending 6 days a week, a couple times a day.
Right.
You're really tight, right? And so breaking that. Cutting that cord was difficult, but the Obama campaign was that catalyst to go see more and try to do more.
What was that like for you working on that?
Well, so I only did I did like very basic volunteer work for that. Like what it really pushed me to do was to pursue higher education beyond my graduate degree, to finish that, because I actually took a 5-year break during undergraduate. And to start thinking about where I was going to go to grad school, what type of grad school I was going to go to, and to travel and see the world, so I could get on this path of creating broad change.
I love it.
I knew that I could like impact folks on a one-on-one or smaller group basis as a coach, and then maybe as a teacher. But it made me like step out to go do these other things, the teaching in Korea, the traveling in South America, and then eventually going to law school.
I love it.
Yeah.
So typically when we think of lawyers, right, we've been, unless you are well versed in the field, we've kind of been conditioned by whether it's Law and Order or whatever we see on TV of the prosecutor and the defense attorney.
Yeah.
What do you do as a lawyer?
Yeah. So I don't practice law. So I went to law school, and people are always like, "Wait, you went to law school and now you're not, practicing law." I didn't go to law school to practice law necessarily. I went to law school to develop a set of skills and tools to create change.
I love it. So more of a policymaker.
Yeah, and I thought that I did some research. I looked at I remembered very distinctly. I did some research at this cafe in Peru. I was volunteering there, and I spent like a couple weeks just like really researching what is the education background for the folks who are like really creating change.
Right.
And a lot of them were lawyers, and I thought that was I could see myself maybe practicing a little bit, but what I ultimately wanted to do was what they were doing. It's like really creating change.
Right.
And the law school here in San Diego that I went to, California Western, I was able to go in on a partial scholarship for creative problem solving. And this creative problem solving program that I thought was very unique, that said, like, we're going to teach you a set of skills and give you some knowledge to go out in the community and solve problems, and that doesn't necessarily have to be in the courtroom. For some folks it will be, right? But we're going to learn how to mediate. We're going to learn how to think, to get ahead of problems, to head them off before they get worse than they need to be,
right.
To anticipate potential issues. And so that was kind of what happened during law school. I got some exposure to what practice might look like, and I just came to the realization that for me, practicing law would be very, very frustrating because I felt I would often see the similar folks from similar backgrounds in similar situations as a result of a failed system.
Right.
And that would be very frustrating to me, and I'd rather deal with the system.
Right.
And so that's what really encouraged me to just kind of immediately pursue policy / political avenues as my way of creating change.
So now you're still with Mid-City CAN, right?
Yeah.
How did you get involved with Mid-City CAN? And for our people who are listening who don't know, what is Mid-City CAN?
So Mid-City CAN, CAN stands for Community Advocacy Network. We're based in City Heights. The organization's been around almost 30 years, and I have to make sure that I'm very clear. It's a nonprofit organization that's nonpartisan, and so once I start talking about the campaign, we got to make sure there's a clear line there so I don't get anyone in trouble.
Right.
But the organization is, at its core, I say it's about building power with and for the community in City Heights to create the change that the folks in City Heights want and need. And so specifically we work on issues related to juvenile justice reform, so ending the school prison pipeline, making sure that young folks have an opportunity to get to and from extracurricular activities and school and jobs by way of no-cost transportation passes. We've been working on that for a number of years. Improving food options in the neighborhood, and then we've really grown our civic engagement program over the last couple of years, making sure that the folks at City Heights are also heard at the ballot box. And so my role there is, the official title is Associate Director, Campaigns and Policy. But what does that mean? It means that I lead a team of community organizers and a policy advocate in working with the community to create the change that they want to see, and like we do it in a way that is collaborative. And builds power for the community so they can continue to create the changes that they want.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to take a slight break because I know you have to keep them separate. So now when we think about somebody who is running for community college board, you're not just somebody. Not that it would be less impactful if it was someone off the street.
Yeah.
But we're talking about somebody who's coming in with the expertise and the experience to know what changes need to be made. So the community college board governs all of the community colleges here in San Diego.
In the city of San Diego, yeah. So San Diego Community College District is the three main campuses are San Diego City College, Miramar, and Mesa College.
Okay.
And then there's 7 continuing ed campuses as well. So yeah, it's a big footprint, and I talked about that desire to create change, right?
Right.
Like more change, more positive impact, and so the footprint's pretty large when it comes to that.
Right. So what does the board do for those 3 schools and then the 7 continuing education centers?
So
how does a board impact?
Yeah. So with the board makes decisions related to the leadership of the district. So the chancellor, who is essentially the CEO of the district. We think of this as like a really big business. That's what the analogy would be. They vote to approve the budget, and as you and I discussed briefly before we went on air, the budget is really how you put your money where your mouth is in terms of values, in terms of government, right? So how are you going to invest in the things that you say you want to do? And then long-term vision, like the strategy, the long-term goals of the district. Where are we trying to head? What do we want this district to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? I think it's a really important role for the trustees to not get involved and interfere with the day-to-day operation so much, but to listen and hear what folks need, students first, and what the community needs now and is going to need as we have an economy that is rapidly evolving, right? So how do we get ahead of things? Yeah, and sometimes devolving, right? So how do we get ahead of things, right? Because we don't want to be reactionary, we want to be anticipatory in terms of the changes that need to be made. And so I think a good board is seeing, is seeing the future and making sure that the district is well positioned to serve the community in the way the way it needs to be served today and is going to need to be served in the future.
I love it. So let's talk about me as a student, right? Hypothetically, I'm a student and I'm interested in going to one of these 3 schools. How does the board impact my attendance?
Yeah. So, no one's asked that question in that way, and I think so. For me, the campaign slogan is "Opportunity for All," right?
Right.
And so, how much time do we have here?
We'll roll with it.
So I think that this is probably a good opportunity for me to explain why this matters to me so much, right?
Right.
And so, Simone, you and I were in Rise together, and we had to choose this word. What is your word that you're gonna live by and commit to? And mine was love. And the reason mine was love is because for me, my family went through some good times and some tough times growing up, but I had this foundation of love from my parents that is just so meaningful to me, and they brainwashed me to believe that I could do anything.
Right.
And I think that is an incredibly powerful force to keep folks together, to keep them moving forward and see hope. And so what I envision is a community college district that puts itself out to the folks in San Diego in a way that gives every young person in San Diego hope that they can attend college.
Right.
And so what is that, how do we do that? I think first we deal with affordability. So millennials and folks younger than me are growing up in a system where higher education is so expensive. I've got $250,000 in student debt, right? That impacts my life every day. But we've got high school students now who are wondering whether or not college is worth it, and think, I can never afford college, right? And so what if every young person in San Diego knew it doesn't matter how much money my parents make, I can go to college because San Diego Community College District is going to take care of the first 2 years. And this is a model that's worked in other places.
Right.
It's not, some novel idea.
Right.
But I think we can do that here. So that's the first one, right, is making sure that it's accessible, it's open. I can go there. It doesn't matter if my parents are poor or rich or whatever it is, that door is open to me. So that's the first way. The second is is also very important, is knowing that when I step onto that campus, I'm going to be supported in a way that addresses my needs that can keep me there, right? Because there might be the concern that, okay, maybe I can start classes, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through. I've got to worry about my housing. I've got my health issues, my transportation. Am I going to even be able to get to and from classes? And so I envision, again, kind of going back to that root word of love, a community college district where every student who steps on the campus feels like loved and supported by the district to provide those essential needs that they need to succeed. And so as a prospective student, let's say you're in high school or you're just a member of the community who's considering moving into a new career and looking at the community college district as an option, I want you to look at it and know they support me. They've got my back. This is an open door, and I'm going to have everything I need to reach my potential to do what I can do when it comes to education.
That is awesome. That is really awesome. And I think that's a great way, because so often when we think about boards, right, we think about, the people who make the decisions behind closed doors, and they're so far removed from the people who are actually being affected.
Yeah.
And so for you to take something that is can be elitist and to bring it down to the level of, no, we are in this together, and this is what this will look like if I'm a part of this board. These are the goals that I'm working toward.
That's the hope, yeah. And the inspiration to run came from conversations with community college students in community college classrooms, right?
Right.
And I would love to continue to do that, to have those conversations. I learned things. So childcare was something that was totally not in my, I wasn't thinking about it as an essential need, right, for a student. Like, as a thing that could get in the way of someone stepping onto campus or getting through school.
Right.
But conversations with students put that on my radar, right? And so I learned, I could be smart and capable and have all of the desire in the world to earn a degree, but childcare is extremely expensive, and if I can't know that my baby is taken care of while I'm in class, I can't go to class, right? And so I learn something every time I have conversations with students, and that's it. So I'm learning and being inspired at the same time, and so I'm trying to do that as I run, and I certainly would want to do that if I was able to serve.
That is excellent. All right, you guys, we are over time. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment with Sean Elo. He is running for the Community College Board of San Diego.
San Diego Community College Board, yeah.
San Diego Community College Board. He is a candidate. Can the public vote?
Yeah, that's like the first, yes, it is on your ballot. From governor all the way down to San Diego Community College Board in June, it'll be on your ballot. Okay,
so make sure you vote for him. We'll be back in just a moment.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
All right, we are back here in studio with Sean Elo, who is running for a seat on the San Diego City Community College Board. San Diego Community College Board.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so he will be on the ballot for June. Please make sure you vote, because you want some. Are you running unopposed, or you?
No. There's 4 folks running. The important part is voting for this. So this is. The further down that ballot you go, the less participation there is, right?
Right.
And that's just because it's further down doesn't mean it's less important.
Right.
So our school boards and our community college boards this is important in terms of lives and opportunity, right?
Right.
And so, the thing that I would tell folks to do is just make sure you vote, right? It's just really, really important. And one of the reasons that these races don't get more attention is because more folks don't vote in them. And the more attention they get, the easier it is for the public to hold folks accountable, right?
Right.
To make sure that those who run state what their priorities are going to be,
right.
And then the community has an opportunity to hold them to those things, right? So, but as you move down that ballot, fewer and fewer folks participate, and I would also say that your vote matters more in that race down the ballot than it does in the governor's race. I'm not saying don't vote for governor,
right.
In terms of the weight of your voice,
right.
It only increases the further down that ballot you go. So obviously I'd love for everyone to vote for me, but even more important, honestly, is that everyone votes in these elections.
So here's a question that I have for you. We're going to talk about voting for a moment.
Yeah.
In the wake of Parkland,
yeah,
and the discussion that's taking place, and then not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, or maybe less than a week ago, there was an incident at a college. How is the board? How are we going to talk about safety?
Yeah.
So we have the discussion that's going on right now on the national stage, right? With because the students from Parkland, I believe one person called them a force to be reckoned with, and they really are.
Yeah, they are.
So now we're dealing with high school and what we can do to make schools safer. What can we do to make community college and colleges, but specifically community colleges, safer for the students who are there?
Yeah.
And how does the board impact that?
So I had a conversation with a student organization a couple days after the Parkland shooting, and safety came up. But for them, it was a Latino organization, and safety means the feeling of safety, I think, is similar for everyone. But what makes folks feel safe can vary, right? Based on life experience and who you trust and who's been who has shown that they will protect you and actually keep you safe, right? And for some people that might be a police officer, and for others that might not be a police officer. Right?
Got it.
And so I think navigating all of that is really important,
Right.
And so what I heard from those students is it increased police presence would not necessarily make folks feel safer.
Right.
And so we have to think, in a more nuanced way. It certainly didn't sound like they wanted a bunch of guns on campus.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thinking in a more nuanced way. And so, there's only so many laws and policies that the board members can change. But another thing that a board member or an elected official at any level of government, I think one of the jobs that they have to do is help amplify the voices of the folks that they're representing at higher levels of government, right? So the board might not have, control over national, gun laws, but if all the students on campus feel a certain way, or a lot of the students, you're never going to have a unanimous opinion about anything, but if most of the students feel a certain way, how do we amplify that voice? How do we bring that to a higher stage? How do we work with the students to amplify their voices? We're seeing that in some schools, where the schools seem to have done a really, really good job of working with the high school students to make sure that they have a platform to speak on and express their desires. I'm going to go to the march actually right after this show.
Okay.
So I think that's it, right? I think it's one, first and foremost, going and talking to the students and the teachers and the folks who work on those campuses and say, what do you need to feel safer? And then working with them to either execute that or create the change necessary to create those conditions where they will feel safe.
Okay. And then from there, building in policies that doesn't necessarily always involve more police presence or more artillery on campus.
Yeah.
And then if we're going to bring in police, we have to bring in people who are trained, who are racially sensitive.
Yeah, right.
Know, and really are there for the safety and the betterment of the students,
right.
and not necessarily to be kind of like the law enforcer.
Yeah, exactly. And the students that I talk to, that's not what they're looking for, right? And so especially, you know, on a campus like San Diego City College, where we have, one of the things that inspired me so much is, you know, we talked about my mixed ethnic background, right, and how diversity is important. And when you walk into a city college classroom in particular, it is there, everyone is in there, right? It is black and brown and white and straight and gay and like you name it, they're in the room, and so all of and documented, undocumented, refugees, citizens, you know, the whole gamut is there. And so because of all the nuances and the diversity there, that question about what is needed in order to feel safe is even more important, right? In an age where folks who are immigrants or refugees are really worried about their ability to stay here, we have to be even more considerate. And again, going back to like the ultimate goal for this, if the ultimate goal of the district is to provide students with the opportunity to excel and reach their potential as students, you cannot do that if you're not safe. You do not feel safe, right? That is like just essential need number one for all of us as people. We're not going to get anything done if I don't, you know, we can't feel safe in where we are. And so, yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it. All right, Sean, we are going to segue just a little bit because I want to make sure that I'm mindful of my time.
Yeah.
You are actually, is it time to take a break? 4 more minutes before break? Okay. You are actually working on, after this race is done, your community action project with RISE is so intriguing.
Yeah.
You are dealing with toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I mean, and especially, I think that the discussion and the work around that is so vitally needed in this day and age because it seems like misogyny is on the rise. And so what is toxic masculinity? And especially as I think it's so powerful that a man is addressing toxic masculinity so that there isn't this white noise sound if it's coming from my gender, right?
So a little more context. So in RISE, we have to do these community action projects, right? And we have to do something that's going to have a sustained impact on the community.
Right.
And there was two ideas that were in my head when we first were given the task of figuring out what we were going to do. And one was very much in my comfort zone and involved policy change around housing. And, you know, people were like, Sean, that's, you know, you do enough of that, you know. And the other one was this issue of toxic masculinity. And there was a documentary out there called The Mask You Live In. And it's really powerful. And a friend of mine had let me know about it a couple of years ago. And it just had had stayed in my head as a thing that needed to be talked about more. Especially folks who consider themselves leaders or want to be leaders need to address. And so, you know, I see this play out most often it's men, you know, acting in ways that I think society has trained them to act in order to be a man, right?
Right.
And
so what are some of those ways?
You know, I think violence. I think aggression. I think the failure to like express emotion in a healthy way, which helps feed the anger and aggression, and you know, the documentary is actually very powerful because it shows little boys with their dads, and there's like this you know sensitivity there that is like. This is going to sound maybe dramatic, but society almost beats out of our boys, right? That sensitivity and softness that you see a dad or a grandfather have with their little boy, by the time you know they're midway through elementary school, you can't do that. Stop acting like a girl, right? And that there's a double like that's negative in two different ways. One, you're not allowing this little boy to be the person who they are and to be a healthy human. But you're also, by saying it that way, you are saying that what is female, what is woman, what is a girl-like behavior is bad, and so that it's negative from both perspectives, right?
Right.
And I don't like that. I don't like that. Any boy should be told not to express emotions. I think that that's not healthy. We need to do that.
Right.
And I also really hate the idea that we can just say, "Oh, you're acting like a girl," and that by itself means it's bad.
Right.
What does that say about our women and our girls, right?
Right.
That like the modeling their behavior is bad, right?
Right.
And so I think that those are some of the ways it plays out, but I think we see it everywhere. I think, how America right now selected, our leader. I think that there's someone in office right now who exhibits many of the traits of toxic masculinity.
Right.
Challenged. If challenged, it turns into a
confrontation.
A confrontation immediately, right?
Or verbal assault.
Yes, and about who's more macho, who's more tough, obviously the litany of complaints about his behavior with women, all of those are like, it's like the amplification of what toxic masculinity looks like. I think it's the embodiment of that. And so I just don't want to see that anymore.
Right. So what do you intend to do to kind of curb that, or not necessarily, because we don't want to be unrealistic in our expectations. Yeah. So let's say, what will your project do to open the eyes of men to their own behaviors? Yeah. And to take ownership for it.
So I wrestled with this because I usually want concrete outcomes, right? I want like, this is a policy change we're shooting for, right? And so I think I struggled with this project because of that. I'm not going to get that with this.
Right.
So what I'm hoping for are the leaders of now and the folks who want to be leaders are going to really challenge themselves, each other, to acknowledge that this is a problem, to own our responsibility in it, and I am certainly inviting women to participate in the conversation as well, because as I've had this conversation with some of my friends, most of this is played out. Most of the negative aspects of toxic masculinity are played out by men, but I've also heard some of my best friends who are women, who are feminists, who are like the embodiment of like female empowerment, say things like, "Oh, my boyfriend's acting like a girl," right? And that's the same thing, right?
Right.
Oh, you're being so emotional; they're acting like a girl. And so we can all do this, right? So we can all work. We can all work on this, right? And train ourselves to be a little more conscious of how we talk about things, and to hold ourselves accountable. So I know that I am like so far from perfect. Like I find myself going back to like that way that I was trained. I revert back to that at times, and I try to be conscious of it. So what I'm hoping to do is create a space where we identify the problem, we acknowledge our roles in it, and then we have a real conversation about what we can do as individuals to move the dial even a little bit, right? And then where we create some accountability. So folks who we have enough trust in and a good enough relationship with, or if I say, Simone, I want to be this way in the world, and if I don't do that, please call me on it. And I know that will be coming from a place of love, and like, because I said I want to do this, and so, what if most of our leaders had a path like that with other leaders, right? When we were misbehaving or not being our best selves, we could have a conversation where, you pick up the phone and say, Sean, I saw the way you addressed that problem, and that's not who you said you wanted to be.
Right.
So that's the goal, is that we create that sort of space and environment. And again, there won't be, I don't know that there'll be a concrete outcome that we can point toward, but I think overall, we can make things a bit better.
And have a more productive conversation around masculinity, and what that looks like without it being this traditional, chest pounding. Because I think sometimes when we start to talk about masculinity, it becomes this, well, are we attacking the traditional model of what masculinity is? And no, it's not about attacking the traditional model of what masculinity is, as much as it is refining it to remove the rocks and the glass and the things that have been picked up along the way that makes it okay for someone who is male to believe that they can behave in a certain way without repercussion or without accountability. Right. And so we can see this in and unfortunately, we have an excellent example.
So one thing he's a good example for, right? Yeah.
That's staring at us.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I know that I am such a work in progress in this area.
Right.
And so part of, my quick pitch for Rise is that I think going through that leadership program helped me get comfortable with the criticism that is going to come when you open up conversations about this, right?
That people don't want to have.
That they don't want to have, or, they're going to see, even I can admit that I am flawed and imperfect, and that's not a good enough caveat to some folks.
Right.
They're still going to want to point out all those imperfections, and so I have to wrestle with that idea. But we got to do better, right? And I see some of the really terrible things that have happened over the last several months with shootings, and I think that is an example as well. These are broken people. I am someone who genuinely in my heart believes that most people are good, and are born with a decency, and that they break sometimes, that society breaks them, that circumstances break them. And what I've seen is just broken people doing terrible things, right? And so I want fewer broken people,
right?
And I hope that through these conversations we can just be more compassionate with each other as individuals, and then hopefully create a more compassionate society where we just do better.
And the truth is, the analytical side of you, as much as you may want the concrete number, the truth is if your candle lights one person who then goes on in your lifetime, right? Let's just lifetime.
Yeah, right.
In your lifetime,
Right.
if your candle lights one person to change the trajectory that they're on and to take more accountability as a man for his existence in the world and how he responds and how he takes responsibility, accountability, navigates, and then that one person goes on to light someone else, you would have accomplished your purpose.
Yeah. And I think, yes. And I think so for part of the thing for me is getting comfortable with that idea, right? That it doesn't need to be grandiose and a massive project to be a successful project.
Right.
And I don't know how much of that is what I've learned from society about what success looks like for men.
Right.
And how much of it is just the way I'm geared. But that's part of what I'm wrestling with this project. I did a social media post about trying to hold myself accountable. I wanted to have this done already, and I haven't, right? And part of that's because I didn't ask for help. I can do this on my own. I'm running a campaign, and I've got this job with work, and I have all these other responsibilities, and it's all right. I don't need help. I got this, and that was crazy. There was no way I was going to pull this together in a meaningful way without reaching out to my network of friends and colleagues and saying guys, I need a little help with this. I can't carry it all.
Right.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to when that gets started.
Yes, me too.
And probably after the campaign would be a good time.
Yeah. It's funny. I still hadn't come to terms with that, but you said it, and I was processing that. Is that what it needs to be? And maybe.
Yeah, I think after the campaign and once that dies down and what the outcome, and then kind of being able to refocus, because there are things that you are learning during this campaign that you've picked up that will be able to contribute to what you're doing there.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us in studio today. You're going to the March for Our Lives.
Yes. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Pick up my little sister, and we're gonna go out there because that is important, and it's so awesome that it's being led by young folks.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It is time for them to rise up and to obliterate the stereotype that they are not involved and they don't care and entitled and all this other stuff that's been placed on them that's really not true. It's just a way to kind of, that thin veneer to kind of cover the governing bodies.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, and I think apathy is the most overdiagnosed description of our communities and of young people that you can possibly have. Anyone who spends time talking to people in a low-income neighborhood or with high school students, it is not a matter of not caring, which is what apathy is. It's a matter of not feeling like the powers that be will be responsive to the demands and needs of the community, right? And so what I hope and what I think I'm seeing right now is that young folks are finding their power. They're finding, they're looking back at history and seeing all that young folks have accomplished when they band together, how powerful it is for a group of youth to stare their parents and grandparents in the face and say, we need better from you.
Right.
I mean, that's tough, right?
Like you're supposed to be the adult.
Yeah.
Adult.
Yeah. Do this better, right?
Right.
So I think that they're grasping that power. There's something that they're finding their voice. They're playing the game better than a lot of the adults are, right? They're handling some of the criticism, and gosh, if only our president could take some notes about how to respond to criticism, and right?
Oh my God.
They're doing it great. So I'm going to go out there and support them with that.
And how can we find out more about what you're doing with your campaign? How can we get in touch with you?
So SeanElo.com is the website. That's SeanElo.com. And we've got a website up there with a little bit more information about the campaign. There's a Facebook page where we not only are trying to talk about the policies we want to pass, but the stories of the individuals who are impacted. Right. So we've got some videos of students. We've got some of the some stories about some of the volunteers and some of the young folks who've gotten involved in the campaign. That's one of my favorite parts about running is the great people that we've brought together as a team. And so SeanElo.com. The Facebook page is also good, and then on Instagram we have a little more fun with it. Some of it's campaign, but you get to know me a little bit as a person and see what we're about from a friend and family side of things as well.
Awesome. All right, so you guys, you've heard where to go. It's Sean, SEAN, ELO.com to find out more about him. You can check him out on Facebook and also Instagram. June is coming up. Be sure to vote. Make your voice heard. We have someone who wants to make a significant impact for the students who are coming in for the community college district here in San Diego. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Do productive things. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.